Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a clear Monday. I think there might be rain tomorrow, and it's this beautiful, warm day. And as a friend put it, I have had a week. I had a week. So I decided that I owed myself a trip to the Brattle Bookshop. First thing in the morning to the used bookstore in downtown Boston that I love. I know it really well. I go there all the time. So I went, and I got a pile of books that I want to show you. And I talked with the staff, which was always fun. I even got a chance to talk with Zach for a while. He was really busy, but I got a chance to talk to him, which is also really fun. I looked at all of the books. I had silent conversation with all of these old friends of mine, which is wonderful. I got there during the dog walking hour, so I met a lot of babies. Got to smooch a lot of babies on the way to the shop. Not all of the rest of it was an unalloyed pleasure. My visit exactly coincided with a loathsome book dealer, one of those insectile dealers that uses an app on their phone to scan all the books. I hate them. I think it ought to be legal to hunt them for sport. They're not human. They're not even another kind of species. They're just an extension of an app on their phone. They're just personified greed. I hate them, and there was one who was pretty prominent the whole time that I was there. Seemed almost to know that I hated him. Sometimes they can feel the waves of hatred coming off a person, and they like that. There was that. There was also... I stayed long enough so that the place started to crowd up, and with not exactly... There were elements of my visit this morning that left me with a sour taste in my mind, which isn't ordinarily the case with the Brattle Bookshop, so I really think I may be going back in July. But I found a bunch of stuff that in one way or another is in correspondence with a whole bunch of other stuff, so I thought we'd just go through that. I found one paperback, two paperbacks, but one paperback was like a pamphlet. I won one normal-sized paperback, and all the rest of them are incredibly heavy hardcovers. And the paperback that I found, the normal-sized paperback that I found, is this lovely Picador trade paperback of A House for Mr Biswas by V.S. Naipaul. This is a Picador thing, I'd never seen this edition before. And this is a lovely novel. It's a little bit overwritten, but it's a lovely novel about a man who just wants to find a place where he is Lord and Master, where he belongs. And he's never been able to find that, ever in his life. That's what he wants. A very simple premise on which to build a novel. I think V.S. Naipaul does a really good job with it. I want to stress, for anybody out there who might be thinking, I don't know, to the contrary, this is the only good thing V.S. Naipaul ever wrote. Fiction or nonfiction, in a career that lasted 100 years of stabbing his friends in the back. This is the only good thing he ever wrote. But it's really good. And I've never seen this copy. I don't have a copy. I don't think it's a Penguin Classic. So I grabbed it. And that was the normal-sized paperback. Then we can deal with the parade of hardcovers. Like I got this thing. Just an oddity. It was $3. That's the only reason that I grabbed it. This is The Fabulous Country, a collection of essays about various aspects of the nature of America, selected and edited by Charles Laughton, the once famous actor from Witness for the Prosecution or his disastrous Henry VIII movie. I had no idea this existed. I had no idea that Charles Laughton ever had even any pretense of putting his name on a book. He did not select or edit anything that's in here. Let's go over this again. Actors are as dumb as little bunny rabbits. Maybe even not full-grown bunny rabbits. Just little baby bunny rabbits. So that no matter when you see their name on a book, it's not true. But this has selections from all sorts of figures. And whoever did the work here, I want to honor that. It seemed interesting to me. I have a soft spot for anthologies. And this one is one that I've never seen. Charles Laughton as the putative author of a book? What on earth? Then I found something. This is a library binding of a trade paperback. So it's a hardcover, but it's a totally different size than you'll ever see. I was actually expecting to find this book weeks ago at the Brattle. Weeks ago at the Brattle, I was finding a lot of books on the Nuremberg trials and then a whole bunch of books on the Holocaust. And when I was finding all those books on the Holocaust, there were one or two that were on my mind. There were one or two that I was pretty sure I would find, and I didn't find them, even though they're staple works, or once were. And I found one of those today. The Destruction of European Jews by Raoul Hilberg. In this naked hardcover, you can see, I think you can even see, it's cut for the trade paperback, and then just bound for a library. What library, I wonder? Oh, the Strassler Family Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Clark University. And this was withdrawn from them. These don't often have the best binding. I think you can see there that might not hold up all that well. But I saw it there for $1, so I grabbed it. Hilberg takes a really documentary approach, double column pages, tons and tons of documentation and attestation and attribution and whatnot, in order to nail down the facts of the Holocaust. And I when I first read this book, I thought it was virtually unreadable on both fronts of that word. That on the one hand, the subject matter was so relentlessly grim, and on the other, that it isn't put together in any kind of way that is meant to be read enjoyably. You might think you can't enjoy a book on this subject, but no. The grimness of the subject does not absolve you. If you're the author, it does not absolve you. Nothing, in fact, absolves you of that, unless you're writing a textbook for a captive audience. And in which case, you might write a book that isn't entertaining to read, but you're still evil. You're doing it because you have a captive audience. That's the only reason. And also, I wondered about some of the attestations, and that wondering just sort of simmered in the background. And then years and years and years ago, YouTube used to be this platform where we're meeting. This platform used to be a lot more free, a lot more wide open, virtually no censorship. Now YouTube is extremely censors. It censors everything, left, right, and center, and would just take it as a matter of course. There are no protests, there's no boycotts, there's no anything like that. It would just take it as a matter of course that you're going to say grape instead of rape. They're going to say SA. I've seen people actually take that out into the real world and say SA instead of rape or sexual assault. And they certainly say it in their videos, even if they have 130 subscribers. So no one's demonetizing you. No one's paying attention to you at all. You're still going to eagerly self-censor to let your overlords know that you are a good peasant instead of a bad peasant. All of that is because of the dystopia, the censorious dystopia that YouTube has become. But it wasn't always like that. It was once upon a time you could find anything on YouTube. And I remember there was a long video by a guy attacking the received notion of the Holocaust. Maybe not going so far as, for instance, David Irving used to go in his heyday, where he would say that more people died in the backseat of Ted Kennedy's car at Chappaquiddick than were murdered at Auschwitz. He didn't deny that people died, but he thought it was typhus. It was a brutal work camp. Of course people died. He didn't think they went there to die, or that there was any mechanism to make them die. And there was a YouTube video in the Wild West days by a guy who I don't think ever went that far, but first of all, he sounded like a lunatic. He had the dead voice of a camp guard. Utterly unavoidable. It was utterly unavoidable. He was trying to be objective all throughout his video, trying to assess various sources, see where various stories come from, and doing at those parts of his videos a fairly good job of submitting someone like Hilberg's notes to scrutiny, to harsh scrutiny. When you say this particular thing happened, how do you know that? How do you know that? If you have only one source, then you don't know it. You can say that that source says it, but you don't know it. And if you have two sources and they say two radically different things, well, why are you choosing between the two of them? What's making you do that? And so on and so forth. When in the isolated parts of this guy's video where he was talking about sources, Hilberg's name comes up quite a bit. And some of his comments about the dodginess of some of those sources echoed things that I thought when I first read this book, before there was a YouTube. Of course, his video was not excusable, like I said, he sounded like a sociopath, and also it was clear. It was clear not only that in his video he was doubting the historical record about the Holocaust, but also that if the historical record was as bad as it possibly could be, he'd be okay with that. I think most evidently seen in his video when he decides to test just how much firepower it takes to burn a body. So he buys a pig carcass, sets it on spits on an isolated beach, and wants to see how long it will take to burn it. And it's no coincidence that's a pig, and it could not have been any clearer in the video what he wanted it to be. You were watching someone's dark fantasy playing out as close as he could get it to do. So I'm not saying that it was a savory video at all. The case that I want to make here, I'm way off the mark, I'm way off track here of the book, but the case that I want to make is that it is far worse to censor that video than to make it. But the reason that I brought it up at all is because that is one of the only places I've ever seen Raoul Hilberg's source work subjected to any scrutiny at all. And I found that interesting, that part of that video. I'm sure that video cannot be found now. Probably you would have a knock on your door if you even tried to find it. But anyway, let's see here. What's next? Oh, right. I found this thing by Barbara Lewowski. Did not know this book existed. When is this from? Oh, this also is an ex-library book. From the Monmouthshire Education Committee Student Library. This came out in 1966. Did not know this book existed. This is Milton's brief epic. It's all about Paradise Regained. The little poem that Milton wrote that is sometimes collected with Paradise Lost. It's along the same lines as Paradise Lost. It is dramatizing Christianity stories in verse as a very self-conscious epic. Paradise Lost is weird. It is very different from Paradise Regained is weird. It's very different from Paradise Lost in a lot of ways. I don't think you'd be more than 5 minutes in reading it before you realize, if you're familiar with Paradise Lost, that you're reading a radically different animal. Really good, but radically different. And I don't know much about the origin story of Paradise Regained. I really don't. Thanks to a recent little book that I just read. I just read a book on the life of Paradise Lost that I thought was quite good for what it did. But it barely mentions Paradise Regained. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know this book at all. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see. There are a lot of books here that I do know. Like this next one, which I know really well. I know this backwards and forwards. And I have an ebook of it, I believe. I think I might have a trade paperback of it, but I wanted the hardcover. This is The Last Battle by Cornelius Ryan. And there he is in the cover photo on the back with the thing that killed him. Unless you're going to tell me, I don't know what Cornelius Ryan's last day was. If he was walking down the sidewalk, tra-la-la, cough, 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 and a safe or a piano fell out of a 10th story window and hit him on the head, okay, fine. Then that killed him. But otherwise, you're seeing what killed him. In 100% of all cases. And this is his book to go along with The Longest Day about the end of the war in Germany, which has been covered a lot of times. Probably the most famous book in modern times is The End by Ian Kershaw. But I love the way Cornelius Ryan writes. Just love it. And I saw this hardcover for, I think, $1 and grabbed it. Of course I did. For a World War II bookcase, which I am hoping to eventually have a whole World War II bookcase. If I'd kept every World War II book that I ever had, I'd have a whole World War II room. But I don't want to have them all. But any Cornelius Ryan that I can find in these old hardcovers, I definitely want. And then another book that I know quite well. I refrained from saying that at the Brattle today. When a customer behind me at the register saw this book, he said, "That's a really good book. You'll really like it when you get to it." He was, at most, a third my age. And he practically called me Little Timmy. You're going to like it when you get to it, little Timmy. It's it's David Halberstam's The Best and the Brightest. This is a nice hardcover that I didn't have. I looked. As soon as I got back here, I looked. And I got rid of the last copy of this that I had. I've had this in mass market paperback, and I've had a number of hardcovers. And this is the inner workings of the Kennedy White House, specifically with regards to Vietnam, but also lots of other things too. Halberstam does a great job in this book in conveying personalities and the clash of personalities. Just wonderful. It's a Kennedy book, and it's a Kennedy book on a small shelf for me of Kennedy books. So yeah, I'll like it when I finally get around to reading it. Not the best Brattle day in terms of other people. Definitely not. Aside from the staff. New and old. I met a new employee today. New and old. The staff, I love. But the other people at the Brattle today, no. So I'm thinking at my next opportunity, the next time it's not 1,000 degrees, the next time it's not raining, at my next opportunity, I think I really deserve another trip to the Brattle. I think I do. And, of course, for that, I'm going to need you to call in credit. So, get to doing that. Anyway, this next one, I have never read this. This is by Glenn Tucker. Did not know that this book existed. I've read a book by this author, but it was on the Battle of Gettysburg. This is not on the Battle of Gettysburg. This is Dawn Like Thunder, the Barbary Wars, and the birth of the U.S. Navy. Incredible. I know that's not going to mean much to a lot of you, but this is incredible. This is going to be Admiral Bainbridge. This is going to be the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides. This is going to be a lot of that. And a lot of other of those great, old, tough as nails, fledgling U.S. Navy frigates. Depending on the job that the author does, his book on Gettysburg is quite good. What has he done? He writes history and raises apples in North Carolina. He's the author of High Tide at Gettysburg. He wrote a book on Tecumseh, which I've never read. He wrote a book called Hancock the Absurd, which I've never read. And he wrote a book called Chickamauga. I was under the impression that I'd read every major study on Chickamauga, so maybe I have read that and just don't remember his name. I might even have it here. But anyway, I didn't know this person wrote a book on the Barbary pilots. I did not know the U.S. sending one fleet and then another to deal with these things. And you deal with them in only one way. Old Ironsides only dealt with people in one way. If the author does a good job, this is going to be a joy to read. And a bit of a discovery. Then we have something that's not a discovery. I'm very familiar with this book, and I'm very familiar with this translation of the book. I just haven't had this in quite some time. This is Johann Huizinga, and this is his book, The Autumn of the Middle Ages, which for a long, long time in the U.S. had a mass market translation as the Waning of the Middle Ages. Mass market and a trade paperback of the Waning of the Middle Ages. Then it got a new translation from Rodney Payton and Ulrich Mamitz, and they decided to retitle it, wisely so, because there were long articles in the critical press about this thing and how different it was. How they went back to the sources and really reinvigorated the translation. So in this particular case, this is a classic work of history. In this particular case, I totally agree that you should give it a different title, because you're effectively creating a new work. You're breaking with the old established translation almost completely. So not the Waning of the Middle Ages, instead the Autumn of the Middle Ages. And I really like this book. I've had it. I got it, actually, I was working at the bookstore, I think, when this came out. Is that right? Yeah, 1996, yeah. So we got, I think that, I was remembering that's the first time that I bought this. We got, I think, one hardcover copy, two. We would have got two hardcover copies at the bookstore where I worked. And when I opened the box, I squealed. I used to open all sorts of new releases. I wasn't supposed to, but I did anyway. Nobody's going to tell me not to, so I did anyway. And, the few managers that ever raised an eyebrow about that were always brought in line by other managers who said, well, yeah, technically we've got a receiving staff to do this, but he's going to know what these things are, and they're not. This was before you had any kind of electronic scanning. And they also a couple of people also pointed out that I had a Rolodex of authors I could sell, of customers I could sell things to. A guaranteed sale. Where in the old days, in the old days in retail bookstores, that was common. You would have the equivalent of a comic book hold list, a pull list. You would have a box, a tray or a box or something or other, a shelf somewhere, where once you got to know a regular customer, when a regular customer was coming in and you saw them all the time and maybe they were friendly, or you were friendly to them, you started to know what they like, maybe had some conversations with them about new books. It was common practice in new bookstores and secondhand bookstores to start setting aside books for those people. You don't know everything that's coming to the store. They certainly don't. So, I have come to know Mr. Smith. I like him quite a bit. He likes me quite a bit. We have good book conversations. If I open a box and I see something and I think he's going to want that, it's not going to be idle speculation on my part. I'm going to be right. It's going to be a sale, a guaranteed sale. So I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to wait until I have 2 or 3 books. And I'm going to say, the next time I see him, on the street or at the park, or even the next time he comes into the shop, I'm going to say, I set some things aside for you that I think will probably interest you. That was the common thing to do. So that's why I was allowed to crawl all over the new releases, because I was still doing that. I didn't have any we had the hold shelves for books that customers called and asked us to hold. And I would put the customer in question's name on the book and put it on the hold shelf, even though they didn't know that it was there. And I would just wait. And it was allowed. I would, of course, be fired and prosecuted if I did that now. But I remember getting this at the store. I remember thinking immediately who would want it. And I actually wanted a copy myself. What was that original? This is University of Chicago Press. University presses never have prices printed on them. No, this would have been expensive, though. It would have been around $35 at the time. I couldn't wait, so I got it, and I got set-aside copies for customers, but I have always got rid of it. Every time I get it, I get rid of it. So I found a copy today, and I will try to hold on to it. Okay, then these next 2 are the product of a comment that I made on this channel the other day. They got a lot of responses. I leave my email on every video. You are free to email me about anything. Anything you hear in a video, anything else. You have to be a little forbearing. Because I live online, I work online, so I'm not often free. Sometimes I'm not free to get to your email right away. Unless I'm in one of those miraculous Toby Ziegler moments where I've got nothing to do, where I've done everything. Or if I'm dodging a deadline that I really hate, that I really don't want to do. I can't see anything interesting about it at all. But otherwise, there might be a delay. You have to be forbearing about that. You also, if you send me an email that is just a vending machine fact boy series of questions, what do you think about this? I'm pressing that. What do you think about this? I'm pressing that. What do you think about that? I'm pressing that. Don't miss any of them. Go into great detail on any one of them. You may begin. It's not what email is. It's not what friendship is. I'm going to ignore those. If you send me a dissertation, an email that's 7,000 words long, I'm going to ignore it. So you're wasting your time. You might be good. It might not be a waste of time to write it as a journal entry, but you are wasting your time to send it to me because I'm not even going to read it. It's too long, and you know that. It's just a complete abuse of what email is. But even given those strictures, quite a few of you email me, and I love it. We don't have to agree on this channel at all, and sometimes we do. Sometimes I get emails every day from people saying, you just said something in a video that I've been thinking for years. I've never thought anyone would agree with me. The other day in a video, I mentioned the evaporation of standard research volumes. I mentioned that once upon a time I had a desk, my father's desk, and I had a chair, and I had a bookcase right next to me with research volumes. The front of my desk were the ones I used the most. A little paperback dictionary, a spelling dictionary, no etymologies, just how to spell words I could never remember how to spell. A little World Almanac. Little things like that in a section right there at the front of the desk. And then immediately to my left, a shelf of standard reference works that were bigger and bulkier, so they didn't go on the desk. They went right there, like the the Princeton Guide to Poetry and Poetics, or the Chambers Biographical Dictionary, or a big American Heritage hardcover dictionary. Things like that would go there. And or Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. Things like that would go there. And the other day in a video I mentioned that nobody has that shelf anymore because we have the internet. We have the internet, which even with all the bots and even with all the misinformation, it's still the work of 2 seconds to get any of that anywhere online. You can do it all day. I do it all day, every day. My writing has not changed in its nature, so I will be sitting there at the keyboard. The keyboard's different. It's light as a feather. There are no keys. It's just these tablets, these little chiclet things. But the writing is the same, where I'll be flying along writing about whoever, Tamerlane, and I will want to know, okay, when did this guy die? And okay, when he died, who was king in England? And when did the spice lanes really start to boom? I'm bad with dates, so can you give me those dates? Well, once upon a time, the thing I would reach for on my left would be a big white book called The Timetables of History. There's no reason for me to do that anymore, or anybody to do that anymore. I can simply call that up online and get it in 2 seconds without even breaking the stride of what I'm writing. So I mentioned that those kind of reference works are dead or dying. No one uses them anymore. And a number of you wrote in and said, well, I think you're right, but it feels really sad. A number of you wrote in and said that you used to, in some capacity or another, write, and that those things were your old friends. And I know exactly how that feels. It sparked a number of great correspondences because I know exactly how that feels. I felt exactly the same way. I was there with my colleagues. I was never working alone. I had actual human being colleagues out there in the writing world who had nothing like that and had to go to the library when they needed that sort of thing. But almost every bookish person who was in the hack literary trade, the book chat world, almost every one of those developed a library like that at home. And I did, certainly. And a number of you did and said, you're right. I would never look at those books now. I work on a laptop. I've got Wikipedia. I've got a bunch of other things. I don't need them anymore. But still, when you said that, I had a pang and I really missed them. I felt the same way. And when I was at the Brattle this morning, the Brattle gods showed me a whole bunch of those reference works, including the Chambers Biographical Dictionary. He showed me a whole bunch of those reference works, as if to taunt me, as if to say, are you sure? Here they all are for $5 a piece. Are you sure you don't want these? You sure of that? So I got 2 of them. I got 2 of them. One of them I actually use all the time. And there is no online equivalent because it was put together with a lot of care and attention. And it's this. It's the Oxford Dictionary of Literary Quotations. Found it with somebody put a plastic covering over this thing, and it's in perfect condition. I have a copy of this in the little book room that is battered all to hell and gone because I use it a lot. I love it. It's entertaining to read through. Even if I didn't use it, it's entertaining to read through. But if I'm thinking of some sort of anecdote and I can't quite remember, this is infinitely indexed in the back. It's indexed several different ways so that you are sure to find what you're looking for in here if it's in here. So I got a copy of this. It's not new to me. It will go on. I don't have a reference shelf like that, but if I did, it would go on that shelf because I have another version of this and I use it all the time. But I got another one as well, just in case. And because, I don't know, something about the cover appealed to me. This is the Oxford Dictionary of Phrase, Saying, and Quotation. So there'll be a little overlap with the literary quotations. I don't think I've ever owned this, and now I do. So we will see what use I get out of a standard reference work. I don't know that I will. I think that with something like this, I can't help but think that the way to get the most use out of it is to read through it first, from front to back. A way that it's not ever designed to be used. I can't help but think that's the way to sort of know the lay of the land, but we will see. For those of you who sent me those letters, I bought 2 reference works of a type we used to use all the time. We'll see if I use them. I think we can agree that These things that are curated, stories that are vetted and curated and presented, prized out of longer accounts and presented, is a different thing from the Macmillan Visual Dictionary, right? Where there's no editorial input at all in the Macmillan Visual Dictionary. If you want to know how a flywheel works, you would be crazy to use the Macmillan Visual Dictionary as opposed to calling up a YouTube video. You'd be crazy to do that. I'm hoping that's my excuse here. And then to finish up, we get the last book here, and it's the other paperback, but it's thin and light. Not that anything mattered as light when I had 100 pounds to carry, but it wasn't boiling hot, and all went well. The whole of the day, the whole of the morning went well, except for the human elements at the Brattle. I wish that the Brattle had been devoid of people. I wish that had been the case. But everything else went well. All the X factors that I was concerned about, none of them happened. So, but I got this last paperback. I've had it many times before. I think it's astounding. I always manage to get rid of it. I always manage to send it to somebody because it's such an amazing thing, and I'm going to see it at the Brattle bookstore. I'm going to see it. You're probably not at your used bookstore if you have one. At your Goodwill or your half-price books, you're probably never going to see it, and you might want it. And it's this. It's an English language translation of Rome. In, as you can see, meticulous three-dimensional reconstruction. Look at that. That is not a picture of ancient Rome, but that is a picture of a meticulously reconstructed model of ancient Rome. The way the city would have looked with gardens and private houses and little streets and all the stunning temples. And you can see, you get these little guides to where everything is, not in ruins, but the way it would have looked. I found this, oh yeah, those drawings as well. Look at that. And you get a legend. You get a legend of what you're looking at here with numbers so that you can find everything. I had a copy of this book. I had a hardcover copy of this book that I just consumed when I was writing a novel set in ancient Rome. Because this, actually, it's so much better than ruins. This gives you an idea. If you are living in an apartment behind a temple and you want to go to your tax guy's office, and he is here. He has an office here. Well, how are you going to do that? You're going to go like this? You're going to go like that? What if you are in an apartment here, in a building slightly behind a temple, you've got a second floor apartment, you don't pay that much for it. What if you are there and you've got a tooth that's really bothering you, staggeringly painful, can barely drink, much less eat. It's driving you mad. And you need it pulled, and you want it pulled professionally. You don't want to go to a guy in the meat market who might not even be sober. You want a physician to do it. Well, you've got to go here. So what do you do? No, it's not going to be that. How do you do that? How do you get to your doctor? I found that it's endlessly fascinating to look at and also endlessly useful to use. And I didn't have a copy, so I grabbed it just because it was there and it was $1. I was there, and I had a week, so I felt like I owed myself some books. So there you go. Good Lord. So we have Rome. We have two old reference works. So the Oxford Dictionary of Phrase, Saying, and Quotation, and the Oxford Dictionary of Literary Quotations. So a little bit of overlap on those. Both beautiful. Both, somebody put plastic coverings over both of them. They're perfect condition, both of them. Then the Autumn of the Middle Ages, a classic work of history. Dawn Like Thunder, about the Barbary pirates and my beloved Old Ironsides. The Best and the Brightest, in a brand new like hardcover that I will definitely read it. The Last Battle by Cornelius Ryan, in this old hardcover. A little book on Milton's strangest book. If you don't count Samson Agonistes, and I don't, because people were doing that sort of thing, then I don't know what Paradise Regained is. It's his strangest book. So, and I found a book all about it that I've never read. Raoul Hilberg, once upon a time considered the dean of Holocaust studies. We have The Fabulous Country, selected and edited by Charles Laughton. I have me doubts, but I don't know what'll be in here. That, I mean, regardless of who was the organizing hand behind this, I have no idea what kind of excerpts will be in there. That might be fun. And finally, House for Mr Biswas, a classic of 20th century fiction. So, in a nice Picador trade paperback, fit to go on the shelf in the little book room. Actually, a few of these things are going in the little book room, so that's good. Anyway, that's it. That is your last Brattle haul for the month of June. That has left me both satisfied and unsatisfied. I wanted to go to the Brattle. I wanted a little bit of time away from Crisis, once I was sure that Crisis didn't need me anymore. So that was satisfying, but it was also unsatisfying because of the human elements, which were all bad. Except for talking with Zach, they were all bad. I'll probably go back in July. I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.